Good afternoon, everyone. Sarah Hetherington here from Ray White Acacia Ridge and also running Renovation by Design. I wanted to do a little bit of a topic today on something called seller joint ventures. Now, a lot of people say to me, what separates you from the rest of the real estate agents out there? Because there's so many of us. And look, there's some fantastic agents out there indeed, which will do an amazing job selling your property, as would I, and have done. But one of the things that I have achieved over the years in working strategically just with investors is an option called a seller joint venture. Now, what that means is basically if you own a property, whether it's an investment or your own home, and maybe you've had tenants in it and they've now vacated, or you're looking to sell and you've been in the home for 10, 15 years and it could do with a bit of a freshen up, and the house down the road is selling for $100,000 more than what yours is worth, we can help. What I would suggest, just as an example, is that because I have a renovation business and all the contacts and how to actually do renovation flips to gain maximum profit, I would actually come into your home and with my own money renovate your property. Now you might wonder why. Okay, fair question. So what would happen is, say your property is worth $750, but we want to bring it up to $900. I would actually come in and I would spend the money on the renovation to bring that up to a $900,000 sale. But what I would do is, at selling point where I would obviously sell it for you at a really good commission rate, is I would actually split the profit with you, or we would negotiate and have an agreement on, what percentage takes what. So what it means basically is if you don't have the time, money, or the know-how, which most of us don't, you have someone on your side who can actually come in, work with you to achieve maybe an extra $50, $70 plus $1,000 in your pocket with a very few tweaks and adjustments. Now, I've been around long enough to know how to actually leverage and create a beautiful looking home. And if you followed any of my other posts, you probably have seen some of the things that I've done. But they're all based around adding value. And also too, we will correct any issues that there are with the house. We do a building and pest immediately, and we will actually address those issues so that when it comes to selling, we don't have any further negotiation or reduction in price at that point in time. Now, just to give you an example, there was an older lady who was really wanting to get into a retirement home. But as you guys might be aware, retirement homes, well, the one she wanted to get into had a bit of a waiting list, and she needed a deposit to get into that, but all of her money was tied up in her property. Now, she was coming up 80. She was living in a home where there were stairs up the front, and it was a typical sort of Southeast Queensland Logan style home. Underneath was storage and upstairs was living. So being 80 and getting up and down stairs every day was proving to be a bit of a challenge. Now, she kept missing out on places that she wanted to get into this particular retirement place. So what her concern was that if she sold the house, she would have the money, but she may not have a position to be able to have anywhere to live, and she may end up living somewhere that she doesn't want to be for the rest of her life. So what we did was we actually provided her with an upfront non-refundable deposit, which was enough of a deposit so that if a placement came up in the retirement village, she was able then to secure it and move out of the property. What me and my team then did was we then got into the property, we renovated it. It was currently worth about $800,000 as it was. She'd lived in it for many years. So, old carpet, old kitchen, green bench tops, that kind of stuff. We spent about $50,000, including all costs on it. We also negotiated a bit of a lease back for her as well. So there's lots of different avenues in here, depending on your circumstances, that we can work with, because we appreciate you have holding costs while that property is vacant. At the end of it, we actually on-sold the property. We made a really good profit on it. That lady ended up with an additional $30,000 in her pocket. Now, at 80 years old, when you manage to get into your retirement home that you want, and you've got an extra $30,000 cash profit, more than what you were going to have if you sold the house as is, she was super, super happy. So basically what we do is we create solutions. Another example, tenants have moved out of an investment property. Now, we all know some tenants are fantastic. Other tenants don't always take good care of properties. And quite often, once they move out, the property, even if it's only 10 years old, could do with a spruce up. And indeed, even sometimes just a staging of a house, some nice furniture in it. I've got one I'm selling at the moment. We're getting offers of in excess of $40,000 more because the property is staged and looked pretty. So, investors, if you have a property, tenants are moving out and you're wanting to move the property on, but you want to achieve the best result on it, you may even be interstate. I've worked with a few interstate investors. Obviously, you're not on the ground here to get the work done and you need someone you can trust. Me and my team have gone in, we've spruced that house up, and 100% guarantees that the seller has gained thousands and thousands more on the sale price of that property because of that. Another example, I just had a couple who were looking to sell, and they just wanted a couple of areas done in their house, just spruced up, a few feature walls, that kind of stuff. We spent $6,000, made the house look really pretty, and they gained an extra $26,000 in value on that. So spending six and getting, an extra 20 grand cash in your pocket because of that. Very much worth doing. And this is what we call a seller joint venture. I don't come in and buy your home, you already own it, but I bring the capital to renovate, and I also bring the skill set and the proven results. So if this is maybe an option that you'd like to discuss further, there is a link that you can click on and we can just have a bit of an informal chat, see what might be available to you and discuss your options, because everyone is individual, and everything can be negotiated depending on where you're at. Even down to, I've worked with investors where the tenants haven't paid rent for a couple of months, the rates might be in arrears, the mortgage is in arrears. We get in and we actually figure out what is the best possible scenario for that, rather than that seller having to sell that at a really quick fire sale at a reduced price because of the financial situation they're in. So same with mortgagee in distress, deceased estates, quite often they're old and run down and are generally in areas where if they had a bit of TLC and a bit of love and care and presentation, they're achieving in excess of $100,000 more than they would do ordinarily. So I get this is a lot to take in, guys, but it's called seller joint ventures. It's a win-win situation for all parties. And if you feel that you have a property, whether you live in it, it might be your owner-occupier, or whether you're an investor and you're thinking, hey, obviously I want to make the most out of my investment and get the most money out of it, or you have any other kind of situation, please contact me and we can have a further discussion. Again, this is Sarah from Ray White and Reno by Design, and I'm here to help.